And we are live. Welcome to the edition of Sales Slap.
Welcome to the Sales Slap podcast, where we hit you with the hard truths, bold strategies, and expert insights you need to master the art of selling. And who's leading the charge? Meet your hosts, Rick Denley, Simon Hares, and Scott Donald. Get ready for real talk, expert advice, and game-changing strategies. Because in sales, you don't just play, you slap. Let's dive in.
And welcome everybody to this edition of Sales Slap with myself, Rick Denley, Simon Hares, and Scott Donaldson, and an incredible guest today who I'm going to get to right away now and introduce. Today on our show, we have Bernadette McClelland. Welcome, Bernadette.
Hey guys, good to be here.
Welcome.
Great to have you.
Great to have you. Bernadette, you are the founder of Sales Leadership Academy, where you're equipping sales leaders to scale their influence, multiply their impact, and commercialize their expertise. You help B2B sales leaders stop managing activity and start leading with clarity. Love the leading part. Clarity, confidence, and conviction, so they can build high-performing teams, scale their influence, and commercialize the expertise that sets them apart. Through high-energy keynotes and hands-on leadership experiences, you help leaders shift how they think, feel, and behave. Because if you don't shift deliberately, something or someone else will do it for you, is your catchphrase, which I love. You're also a well-known author of Shift and Disrupt. Welcome to our show, Bernadette.
Welcome.
Thanks, guys, and you can go to the top of the class for doing homework.
Well, personalize and customize is very important, isn't it?
It's good to be here.
We're excited to have you here. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, where you're calling in from, and what's happening today.
Yeah, so I'm calling in from Denver, Colorado. So we're just at the base of the Rocky Mountains here. It is. We love it here. Moved from Australia 3 years ago, and the best decision we have made. Let go of everything, sold everything, and came over here with 6 suitcases, 2 wheel-ons, and 2 backpacks. And yeah, haven't looked back. So we're loving life over here.
Incredible. Well, we're blessed to have you on the show today. And I know we want to get right into it because you've got so much input right now. We've been looking at your posts and information that you have coming along as well. So Simon, welcome. And you're still traveling. You're in Western Canada.
Yes, I am. I'm on Vancouver Island at the moment in the lovely little town of Comox. I've got a Courtney, actually. I get them all mixed up. Courtney, Comox, and Cumberland, as in the sausage, I imagine. But I'm here on the island just for another week, so that'll be our month here. So it's that's all good.
Super to have you. And Scott, you're in your house in Winnipeg there as well. Now, I just want to dive right into it. Simon, what do you want to ask our great guest here in Bernadette?
Well, I have a ton of questions, and we don't have all day to do this. And it feels like meeting an old friend. It really, really does. It's just less of the old, I think, but it's just lovely to see you and lovely to meet you in person. I've watched you on so many of your keynotes and what have you, and the stuff that you post on LinkedIn, including your recent Field of Dreams, which I loved.
One of those random things you think, oh, you know what? No makeup. It's like hair day, bad hair day. Who cares? It's
just an amazing post, and anyone that's watching, I genuinely do think you should just go into Bernadette's profile and watch that video about the Field of Dreams. It's just excellent. But to your Leadership Academy, I'm really, really excited about the fact that you've launched this. Yeah. And I've got kind of a very top level question to ask you, which starts with a bit of a controversial quote, because Peter Drucker, who everyone's heard of, famously said that culture eats strategy for breakfast, and strategy is going to be a key part of leadership and what you do. What are your thoughts on that particular comment that he says? I know I have tons of different thoughts about it, and I'm sure you do too. And I'm really interested to hear what you think of that quote, in how you would then bring that into your academy.
And that's a really good point, because people always before process is one of my catch cries anyway. You need the culture, because the culture is about the behavior. And so the culture part of it. So in the Sales Leadership Academy, just to kind of give you some context, it's a journey. and it is an ecosystem, if you like. And the culture part, the understanding how your people tick, what drives them, but also what makes them feel safe. And so that whole psychological safety part must come before strategy. Strategy is level 3, comes directly after the people part. So people and then process. And so you must have that culture in place, because that then is going to drive the direction that you're going to go in. So that's going to contribute to the direction. So yes, the culture drives behavior, and then the behavior drives where you're going to go and how you're going to get there. So it's like, I say it's kind of like this. So, what's more important, the cell or the cell or the organ or the person or the community or the planet. Take one of those out and nothing's going to work.
Right.
So it's the same with strategy and with people and with your own self-leadership. And there's, take one of those things out, or one of the 5 in the Leadership Academy, and it's not going to work. You're not going to get your results.
No, absolutely. And when we think about business, it is that people, product, process. And when you are a business and you let your processes dictate the way you treat your people, you lose that cultural piece, don't you? So you've got some bits going on there.
But so but you definitely need both. And strategy is a key part of the Leadership Academy. There is a certain part of the strategic, piece, which I've worked with my clients with over a number of years, which is critical. And that part is revenue and role clarity. And so you get that right, and that's a whole little framework unto itself, a whole system unto itself that also drives performance. So,
amazing.
Yeah,
absolutely amazing. Now, talking of performance, obviously there's going to be the leadership element of that. Rick, what are your thoughts and questions on the leadership side?
Yeah, I love the leadership. As you know, it's an area of focus for me. And what I got out of what you just said, I just want to reiterate, is that it's people that grow companies and great leaders that grow people. So focusing on the people will have the end results that you want. So I can't emphasize that any more than what you've said, Bernadette. That's so important. That, listen, and people know I'm a recovering engineer. So look, I'm the first one to put in a formula, a process, operations, CRMs, repeatable winning sales processes, and so on. But without the people being effective in a culture that's full of growth-minded individuals and risk takers, you won't achieve any of those things. It doesn't matter how finely tuned the machine is.
I agree. And I also agree there's another layer that has to go prior to that.
Okay.
And that is the leader himself or herself. And that is, so you can put high performing salespeople into a sales manager's role, and they're only there, A, because possibly they've just fallen into it for whatever reason, or B, because they're in it for the money or the commissions or the ego or whatever it may be, and it stops there. So that people part just doesn't happen.
Right.
And so there's the first layer, and this is the first layer in the ecosystem, has to be congruence, has to be the leader, has to want to align and have an intentionality about them, not just intention of plans and where we're going to go, and this is my intention for today, but an intentionality around the purpose of why they're in that role to start with. And if you've got the right people, and you mentioned the word growth focused, growth focused to me isn't just about the numbers. Growth focused to me is about that leader wanting to become a multiplier of impact. And so on the leadership, the sales leader of influence. So that's where I'm driving my leaders, is to become a sales leader of influence. And in order to be able to influence other people, you must know what influences you to start with. And we go deep in that. This is, and it just helps cope as well in today's crazy world.
Right. And supporting that is a recent Harvard Business Review that said 57% of organizations are concerned that their leadership is lacking, specifically sales leadership. So it's definitely an area of focus that needs to occur.
But it always has been, hasn't it? It's
It
always been a
Oh,
thing.
it's not new.
Yeah,
You're right.
there's nothing new about it. I mean, you can dress it up in as many different ways as we want. We know that many sales managers are there because they got a great sale, they made great money, or something that made them famous.
Yeah.
And often we think that they're in it just to, do their own thing. But I was watching, Mark Hunter this morning actually talking, and he was saying, it's about growth and it's about revenue. You should be proud of making revenue, because the more revenue you're making, you should be proud that you're helping more customers. And that's the key, isn't it? That's why we're here, is to ultimately help our customers. And it's that mindset, that leadership mindset, maybe. So it's always interesting.
The top pyramid of the pyramid is actually, well, the whole pyramid is based on who you're being, what you're doing, and who you're becoming. And it's that becoming part, which is, we're moving into an era of AI. And, we know that the differentiator is going to be the humanness of how we show up, because AI is taking away all the tactical stuff. So what's left? And so ultimately, I mean, the leader has to be congruent, which is that manager basis for me. They have to connect, which is the motivator. So these are the archetypes, if you like. So they've got to motivate their people, which is level 2. But it's not just the rah-rah. It's the motivation is a motive for action. So do you know why your people are fronting up every Monday morning? What gets them out of bed? What makes them feel safe? The next level up is where you come into your clarity, and you are a mentor. And this is around the revenue, the role, and the results. And this is where the strategy comes in. And your team, they are the heroes. You as the leader, you've walked that hero's journey. You are their mentor. So they're looking for you on their journey. And so that's why mentorship is crucial and in the center with strategy. And here's the difference, is if you're looking for results, you go to the next level where you've got to mobilize the team. And that is mobilization. And you've got to front up as the leader in an absolute state of conviction, because that is what people buy. Whether you're a salesperson or whoever, people buy your conviction.
Love it.
And so here, this is something that's not happening out there. And I was at a conference, I was speaking to a whole heap of vendors with different AI tools, AI coaching tools, and they all help the salesperson, which is fantastic. They all help the salesperson coach the salespeople around behavior and deals. But the sales leader who can mobilize their team by being able to coach around belief plus behavior plus business is crucial. And then ultimately they become that multiplier of impact, because it's based on contribution and commercial contribution. So they're the layers, and they're the archetypes of who you're being, doing, and becoming. And so Mark's correct in the fact that if we do go to market with an absolute mindset of what can we contribute to the conversation, but what can we contribute to the buyer's business, understand what their customers want from them. All of this is crucial, but it must start with the leader. It must start with the sales leader.
Amazing. Excellent. Wow. What points? I'm writing things down. I hope our viewers are as well. This is all gold. So thank you, Bernadette. Bernadette, I know Scott's been chomping at the bit here to ask you.
I hope you're prepared for this, Bernadette. Seriously, it's going to be underwhelming.
Time for that.
Yeah.
I've never heard Scott this quiet. I was going to poke to see if his screen had frozen.
So I have two observations. The first observation is I can't get used to seeing Rick without a mustache. The second observation is I can fully understand now why Simon is such a big fan. Like your energy and your passion. I'm actually in awe of listening to Bernadette talk about what she's doing. So this is So my question comes from your LinkedIn profile and
God.
your about section. And something here caught my eye. You talk about managing numbers isn't enough, and just doing more won't move the needle. So I love that. And I guess my question is, why do organizations tend to focus so much on the numbers versus the person? And why does that not work? Or maybe better yet, what does work?
Good question. So,
see, I told you. See, I'm the one carrying the team here, but they waited until now.
Wow.
So it kind of comes back to that whole chicken and egg thing, or the planet and the community and the ecosystem. So you need both.
Yes.
But here's the thing: is that businesses focus on the numbers, and there's two parts to this. Is that if you go to the market and your mindset is a direct line to money, or even in our personal lives, I'm going to meet that person because I'm going to get a deal with them, or I'm going to meet that person because they've got something for me.
So the intention, right? We're talking about the intention.
But if you go in with a direct, you're wanting purely to get something out of that, it won't happen.
Right.
It won't happen. And so the ability for a leader to be able to just release a little bit of that pressure and trust the person, because this is what's happening out there. You mentioned before, the statistics of 53% of leaders. Well, we all know the statistics of 53% of numbers aren't being made. And the thing is, you can work on activity, but not get results.
Right.
And so you can have a team that are so busy working, but what they're working on is totally not effective.
Right.
And so this comes back to part of what I'm teaching around perception. And perception is huge, because I put something, we're looking at the number 6, and you see a 9 because of the angle you're looking, and I see a 6. And I expect you to come to the table seeing what I see.
Right.
But you're not seeing that. So I'm measuring you on something that you're not even aware of. So perception is a huge part of this. But the other part of it is that if you are going to hammer on or continue to kind of hit your people with numbers, then what you're doing, and you're going to burn them out. But the other thing is, there are leaders out there that focus on the numbers, but what they've been able to do is they've been able to align some form of a meaning to the numbers, so that they're able to get buy-in from their guys and girls, and the team is all in. Everyone's all in. So yes, you're talking about the numbers, but there's meaning behind them. And that's, once again, the ability for that leader to be able to know what makes their team tick.
Amazing.
Fantastic. Thank you for that.
Excellent. Yeah, great response. All right, Bernadette, you might feel like a bit of a firing range here, but there's so much we want to pull out of your great information. Here's what I want to ask you. And you speak about self-leadership as well as leadership of others. Now, I know there can be different things in leadership, but I want to hear from you a little bit. What are the common elements? If we've got self-leadership and we have leadership of others, what's in the middle that's common to those that leaders should be doing on a regular basis?
I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. I think that so we've got two circles overlapping. See, I see things in models. And so what's the intersection? And I would say that the intersection would have to be ownership.
Ownership.
That's
ownership.
Good.
I think ownership of my responsibilities, ownership of, and once again, this is all part of strategy. Okay, so I'm pulling strategy into that question. It sounds quite like a human. It's a human question,
right?
But I'm also pulling strategy into it. So if you understand and take ownership of what your role actually means and what your role actually is outside of it being a job description.
Okay.
Okay. And you are able to identify the responsibilities that come with that. And then you're able to merge that with understanding the responsibilities and working with your team so that everyone is on the same page as far as priorities is concerned. So I go, it's perception, purpose, and priorities before you move into performance. And so that is where that ownership comes in.
So there's an accountability piece here as a leader and your own ownership, and you're going to lead by example through that, aren't you?
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's what a leader does ultimately as a multiplier of impact. That is the ultimate, because a really strong leader a sales leader of influence ultimately has passed the ego. They've passed that ego stage.
Yeah.
And they are into that higher level of consciousness where they want to be able to not just serve themselves, but to also serve their team, the business, the community, and whatever.
I love that. That's so great. Thank you. Now, I want to move on to something else for a minute here. And I want to bring up this because you've been talking a lot from this, I think, and we've given some questions your way. Do you want to share any more? Tell us about this Sales Leadership Academy of yours.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of a backstory.
Yeah.
I have been doing sales training now for a number of years, as you probably know, Simon. And a year ago, and I come to the table with a lot of different gifts. And I think what I've done is I've recognized that I have gifts, and those gifts are in certain areas, but not every area of the sales field. Okay. And I'm very okay with saying, put me in front of spreadsheets and numbers and forecasts. Oh my God, that's another language to me. So that's not my strength. So last year, I had been given different opportunities to speak at different events. And what the event organizers wanted was different topics. And a friend said to me, "What do you do?" And it's that typical question where it's like, well, and I couldn't answer it succinctly. So it kind of made me go home and think, geez, girl, what do you want to do? What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? And so I went down the speaking track, which I was already speaking anyway, but I decided, no, I'm going down this speaking track. And I'm going to be speaking around deliberate disruption, and which is why, I believe that if any of us are not shifting the way that we think, feel, and act, something or someone else will do it to us or for us. And out there in the marketplace, there is a lot of middle management, sales leaders being laid off.
Tons.
Absolutely. And so I'm like, I was doing all this keynote speaking, and then of course people want to know, how can we work with you more? And I'm thinking, I'm not going back on my word to myself. I'm not going back just to do sales training. So I thought, okay, what is it that I can bring to the table that is congruent, that I can do with ease and that I can do with joy? And so I put that model together. It took me a little while, but that model, the circle model, what it encapsulates, you can either come from the out to the in or the in to the out. So I'll just share it very briefly, because I think it will resonate with some of your leaders. Is that the philosophy is deliberate disruption, okay? But outside of that, there are three key principles that we have to come to the table with. Our identity, we have to get clear on who we are. What are the gifts your leaders bring to the table? And, how do they commercialize that? Secondly, is what is their intentionality? Like, why are they in that role? And third is, how do they influence others in order to make that impact that they want to make? Now, the next circle out are the two energies, the polarities. So on one hand, you have masculine energy, wealth-driven energy, push energy. It's this whole competitive energy, which predominantly is the sales world. And most of my sales leaders are men. Most of my clients are men. But on the other end is that feminine energy, the pull energy, the creative energy, the wisdom. And so today, as we move forward into this world of AI, we need to be able to balance and bridge our energies, because we all have both in us. And so how can we come to the table bringing more creativity, bringing more of our wisdom, bringing more of our expertise? And then the next level out are the 5 layers, which is positioning yourself as a sales leader of influence, being able to understand how your people tick and what makes them feel safe, the process of revenue, role clarity, and results, coaching the human and the deal, and ultimately providing proof of leadership, like proof of life. And then outside of that are the 4 key areas that are my strengths that I bring to the table and have done. And that is commercializing your self-leadership, systemizing, creating your own system for sales leadership, contextualizing story, and being able to not just tell how to tell stories, but how to show stories through mental models, and then optimizing strategy. So that's my model, and that's what the Sales Leadership Academy is based on. But ultimately, the driving program is the Sales Leader of Influence, which are those 5 key areas.
Thank you for that explanation. It looks like a fabulous program and a lot to take in. I just want to ask, because I've had one of the comments coming in from our live feed here, where can you find out more information about your program?
Yes, like Sales Leader, the Sales Leadership Academy, .com, or if you want to go on the wait list for one of the programs, salesleadersglobal.com.
Okay.
Or just connect with me on LinkedIn and just say, hey, if none of that's making sense, just Bernadette, point me.
Great. Incredible. That's great. Now, as we move along, anybody, Scott, or I'll go to Simon. Do you have a brief question for
I'm sure Simon has another one for his friend.
I've got so many. I was just thinking about what you're talking about. This intentionality and proof of leadership is just amazing, because, we know that people can't be what they can't see. So therefore, we have to be demonstrating what this leadership role is doing for the salesperson, because ultimately the leader has another customer. They have the person working for them.
Absolutely.
So when we start to think about the leader that's going on to your program, and this question, I'm afraid, has just come out from what you've just said. So I'm afraid you're going to be on your toes again, but it'll be easy for you.
So I'm standing. I'll stand up there.
It's all good. It's all good. Up she goes. When we think about a team of salespeople who then recognize that their manager is then going to attend this leadership academy, what can they expect in terms of changes from that leader when they come back? Are they going to turn into David Brent? Is it that? Because we see that happen quite a lot with people going to management training.
One key outcome.
Yeah, what are they going to see? What are they going to get from it as the salesperson working for them?
I would love to be able to answer that question for every salesperson out there whose leader comes to the academy. I would love to be able to answer that. At a high level, they are going to have a leader ultimately who is so in touch with themselves that being in touch with themselves enables them to be able to be present for their team. Now, that would be the ultimate. You would be transparency, there would be vulnerability, there would be a shift in the way that the team is brought into conversations. And it would be this place where the sales team feels, oh my God, this is what I've been after all along.
Wonderful.
Wow.
Everything else comes out of it, but ultimately that shift has to be how we show up as individuals, whether that's us as parents, friends, or whatever, but that shift has to come from within. And that they're the only people, by the way, that I do work with are those that do want to grow from the inside out. And it happens. shifting the way they parent, but they've come for leadership. Hey.
Right. And they have to want it themselves. It has to come from them. Scott, brief question if you have one for Bernadette, or we'll move on.
So you know what? I don't have a question, but I'll make a point. One of your recent posts, and I think it's important. So I just want to make sure this gets covered. And I think it very much fits with your energy as I'm seeing it live. It is about the Australian sunset and taking it. And I'm reading it here. Take time out from doing the work and allow ourselves to do the real work. What matters is that we stop long enough to hear ourselves think and feel. So this seems very much in line with what you've been chatting about, and I love that concept. And if there's time to comment on it, but why is this so important in this day and age that we take that time to step back and hear ourselves and do the real work on ourselves?
Yeah, and when I say the real work on ourselves, we don't have to excavate. It's not about excavation or anything, or going back and sitting on a couch when you were 5. It's not about that at all. It's simply about allowing ourselves to be still.
Yeah.
And whether it is a walk, like, the Colorado Mountain Walk, my Field of Dreams, I do. It's down the road from where I am. And it's in that stillness. It's part of the brain as well.
Yep.
And that's where our ahas come from. That's where our ability to just regulate our nervous system. We are in such a huge state of uncertainty, and we are always on. And that is not doing our nervous system any good. So we have to take time. Some people do yoga. Some people meditate. I'm not one of those people. I'll go for a walk. Like my mind's just all over the place. Like I've got one of those minds. And so for me, a walk enables me to just be still. And that's what I've done the past 12 months. Like I
love this. This is great stuff.
I've not been out there. I've not been, people are kind of thinking, oh, she's inconsistent or she's going to drop out of doing her business. No. Stillness has so much movement in it.
Yeah.
If you can pause, that's movement. And
I love this. This is a great message.
Yeah, it's true. And, doing nothing is actually moving forward as well at the right time.
It's part of a healthy brain.
Right. And the healthy brain part, it's been interesting just to share a little bit, not to get too deep into it. I do a lot of stretching, which I used to call my meditation. I was lying to myself. I've actually started some meditation, a couple minutes a day. And the research shows your brain actually grows. So as much as I want to be at the gym working out, which I do, meditation, that calmness, and your brain actually grows and expands. So stillness is growth as well. Great point, Bernadette.
Absolutely.
Listen, this has been fabulous. I want to bring up as well, if I can here, let me just see if I can do this correctly. Let's get
there. It is.
There it is.
There it is.
We love it.
Every podcast we have to promote a book. Well, why not yours? Where can people get their hands on Shift and Disrupt? Stop selling widgets. Start selling wisdom.
Storytelling.
At your local Amazon store.
There it is. Look at that. See? Wait a minute. Let me hold that up again for us. I need that one. Boom. There it is, people. That's your reading coming up from Bernadette.
That's your homework, everybody.
Yeah. And so
and there's pictures.
Well, there's mental models. See, the thing is, everybody has a hammer, and looks at everything as though it's a nail.
Yeah.
And what we need to do today is to come to the table with a Swiss Army knife. And the Academy and this book is going to provide that for you.
Fantastic.
Incredible. Thank you. That's really amazing. And all the points that you've made today have been so good. I don't know about others. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch this myself, because you're
going to have to come back, Bernadette.
And we really appreciate having you on the show. I make a few notes here. You've talked about motivating your people, that the team are the heroes, the multiplier impact that you have. Belief plus behavior plus business. That was a big one for me. Those three right there.
Well, there's a model for that. I've got a framework for that.
I suspect you do.
There's a model for that. There's an app for that, probably coming out soon, right? By yourself. Deliberate disruption. Deliberate disruption and influence. Wow, I love that. That's with me with change and reinvention as well. And Simon said, boy, you can't be what you can't see. And leaders have to lead the change themselves. Simon, quick recap here.
Sorry, I missed that. You just dropped out.
Sorry, quick recap. Simon, what have you got for us?
Well, I'm just, oh God, it sounds so rubbish, doesn't it? But I feel like I'm at a fan concert. I really do. She's the Taylor Swift of the sales world. My God, it's amazing. Let's have that. See, I brought it in, and you normally bring in hockey, so I'm bringing in Taylor Swift.
Fair enough.
I didn't bring in hockey yet, or I would have said that.
No, just let's not. So no more golf on ice today. So when we start, so it's just been amazing to meet you and to listen to you and all of this gold that you have. We would love to have you back on again to talk further.
To come back on.
I
I will have been to the hairdresser by then. Oh, that was
all right. In an hour after the
too.
hairdresser, you're back on. Scott, wrap up for us.
So this is hard to wrap up, but I think what I take, like, just your passion, like I am now very much understanding why Simon is such a big fan, and I'll make an admission here that I'm trying to be a better reader, and I haven't read your book yet, but I'll be asking my VP of Finance shortly if I can buy my next book, and it'll be Shift and Disrupt. So
I'll pay you later.
Okay.
Absolutely great. Good. Thank you so much for being on here, Bernadette. And people know that they can replay this. They can find you on LinkedIn as well as your website. And I know that they will reach out to connect with you. For our viewers on this Sales Lab podcast, thank you for being here. Scott, who have we got coming up next?
I'm looking at the list. So June, again, this is going to be hard to follow. But in June, we have June 6th, we have Tom Boston from My Sales Coach. And later in June, we have Brandon Lee from Fist Bump. So June will be a good month as well. We'll try to keep the energy up from what Bernadette brought to today.
As you said, Bernadette, you've set the bar so high for us. So thank you, Bernadette, for being here. Thank you to our viewers for being here, my co-hosts as well, and wish everybody a fabulous weekend. We'll see you again on the Sales Slap.
For attending the Sales Slap podcast, feel free to reach out to your hosts, Rick, Simon, and Scott, and our guests from this episode for more information. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you again.
That was awesome. Thank you, Bernadette.
Thanks, guys. Really loved it.